Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to MJ's Views, where there is no limit to any discussion. And today I'm joined by a very interesting personality, an individual that I look up to and is very close to me as a dear friend, a scholar, but more so a brother. We are going to discuss a topic that's very close to our hearts, a personality that took a stance 1400 years ago. Until today, his name and his message remains very important to our lives. The pride of Ghana, Africa's finest, Sheikh Nuru Mohammed. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The pride of Ghana, the pride of Tanzania, and Brunei University.
Salam, Sheikh. Now, welcome to MJ's Views. We are in the month of Muharram, a month that a lot of us hold very, very close to our hearts. Obviously, a personality that everyone adheres to. In the 10 to 12 days of Muharram, everything comes to a standstill, and we all start looking at things very differently than we are used to. Yeah, probably the only sect in Islam that welcomes a new year with grief and sorrow, but also a time for us to think back and look at our lives and see how we can move forward. But Imam Hussain, Sheikh, is an interesting personality. You know, we have had this discussion so many times offline, where we have spoken about how one man can give you solace in so many different things.
Absolutely.
You know, and one thing that stands out a lot for me was his spiritual impact on the day of Ashura. A lot of us talk about the thirst and the hunger and all the things that he does, but his phenomena in the spiritual aspect is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You obviously have given loads of lectures and series of lectures. What is it about Imam al-Hussain that stands out to you the most?
Thank you so much, MG. It is indeed a great pleasure.
Pleasure mine as well.
And honor to be here with you in this beautiful and holy month of Muharram, where we commemorate and remember the tragedy of Karbala. No doubt, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam is heavenly initiative on earth. He is the summary of the missions of all the prophets and the messengers of Allah on earth. Someone like me who wasn't born a Shia and got the opportunity to embrace this beautiful school of thought. From the time I embraced up to date, I've witnessed the miracles of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. For me, Imam Hussain is everything. There is no goodness that I can think of, either in my life or in the life of those that I associate with and I know, without mentioning Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. So he is all-rounded personality. Where do you start when thinking about Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when discussing about Imam Hussain? Is it revolutionary personality? Is it mystical, spiritual personality? Is he a social personality? Where do you begin? He's all-rounded. And that is why the whole world is crazy about Imam Hussain alayhi salam.
I agree. Sheikh, the thing that I, for example, hold very, very close to me is it's very strange for a message or for an event or an incident that happened 1400 years ago to still be this relevant 1400 years later. Example, we have so many things that have happened in the last 100, 200, 300 years. It's just remembered per day. So you have countries that remember their heroes for a day in a year, and that's one day of the year where you say, okay, we're just going to remember that and we have to move on because life has to continue. But there's something special about this message and this incident, the entire tragedy of Karbala, the day of Ashura, that 1400 years later it's still relevant. And one thing that really hits home for me is you listen to the same musibah years in and years out. You hear about the same story years in and years out, the same personality. Yes, you will always find something new because of different narrations and stuff, but you always find something that stands out to you. But what I really find mesmerizing and something that, you know, that always sits with me when Muharram ends is it's the day of Abul Fadl, it's the day of Imam Hussain, it's the day of Qasim, Ali Asghar. That story is something you have heard. I've heard 30 years of my life, right?
True.
But you constantly sit in there and you're waiting, like you have never heard this before.
True.
But there has to be something special about the Sheikh, because it's very strange for an incident to constantly be remembered and honored in a greater way as years go by.
Yeah. You see, this is a very important point, MG. I always get the opportunity during this holy month of Muharram and Safar to sit on the member and speak about this great personality. And as you mentioned, we repeat the tragedy and what happened many years ago. As a speaker, it always refreshes my heart. It's like something new. I look forward to mentioning the tragedy again in Karbala. Imam Hussain, Habibi, from my readings, the reason as to why this message of Imam Hussain will remain fresh up until the day of judgment is because of his unique connection with God. Imam alayhi salam had unbelievable connection with God, which no one will be able to explain. I will only try my level best. Any scholar will try his or her level best. But I personally believe wholeheartedly there is no one who will be able to do due diligence to that solid and intimate relationship Imam al-Hussain had with his beloved and merciful creator. As an example, there was discussions about Imam Hussain even years before the birth of Imam al-Hussain. Because Imam Hussain is integral part of Allah's plan for this earth. Because Quran tells us the main mission of each and every prophet and messenger is to ensure that absolute social justice is administered. Who manifested it beautifully is Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. So therefore, if you are looking for something which is the main drive behind Imam al-Hussain and what makes all of us really, when Muharram comes, we don't know anything else. We only know Hussain, Hussain and Hussain. And we always chant this, promising the Lady of Light, Fatima al-Zahra, we will never and ever leave Hussain and forget Hussain. Simply because his connection with his Lord, who sent him to us to be the role model for us, is something I can't explain. I can't comprehend. It's crazy, MJ.
Sheikh, I wanna touch a bit into your life before you found the Shia school of faith, and then we'll move on to the spiritual aspect.
Sure.
When you looked at the Shia world and you looked at this entire phenomenon of Imam al-Hussain and the whole philosophy behind it, what crossed your mind then? Did it look like, okay, here we are, they're back with their black clothes, going out there? Obviously, the pictures shown to the outside world are completely different to the reality on ground, right? What is it that you saw, and what happened when you crossed over and you looked at the things and said, actually, you know what? Now I'm at a point where I wish I knew about this personality sooner.
Absolutely. God guided me. I made my own research. Eventually, I discovered this beautiful school of thought. But if there was one thing, or there is one thing, right from the beginning, which wasn't sitting well with me, is this whole Azadari. People wearing blacks, people hitting their chests. That wasn't sitting well with me. Even the very first year, I became a follower of Ahlul Bayt. Until I started getting to know more about the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. You know, if anyone asks me, what's your opinion after? I will say, if you know, you know.
Okay.
I can't explain, because you will only appreciate what you see out there in terms of people wearing black, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, on top of their voices, when you discover this school of thought deeply.
Ahsant.
You need to delve in more and more. Then you will understand the essence of love. This is love and pure love, but nothing else.
Subhanallah. Let's bring back something that you and I have been discussing quite a few times. And in my own personal journey, I'm yet to discover this side of Imam Hussain, as much as I've tried to read about it. We start with the Arafah, right? The Arafah was something that Imam Hussain is reported to have narrated a few years before the incident of the tragedy of Karbala. It talks a lot. One line that this year stood out for me, and I was discussing this with my wife, and I told her, it's so strange, emotional as well, that one of the ayahs in the Arafah says, one of the verses says, "Oh Allah, do not take me until and unless you're happy with me."
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
And I told my wife, and I said, this was said by a man who knew what his fate was going to be, whose grandfather was the best individual to have ever been in this world, whose mother was the best lady we have ever seen, whose father was the bravest warrior, and no one could come close to him in worship. Yet he was the person who said, "Allah, do not take me until and unless you're happy with me." And then I look at myself today, and I'm saying, okay, Muharram's here. I'm going to serve in the name of Allah through, for the love of Allah through Imam Hussain. But this verse, this line, right? For a man who hadn't even embarked on the journey to Karbala yet, something about his stance and the spiritual message behind it is deep.
True.
And I don't know what you take out of this, because it's also said that reportedly Imam Hussain raised his hands and prayed and cried. And wept for to Allah, saying that I forgive me. And we've been in Hajj together.
True.
And I remember once we were in Arafah together, and you were reading the Arafah. And as we sat there, and when we passed this phase of the dua, and you said, raise your hands and ask for forgiveness.
Absolutely.
And we raised our hands, and you said, okay, put your hands down. I'm not going to continue until and unless, if you're asking Allah for forgiveness and you haven't forgiven anyone, then what is the point of asking Allah for forgiveness?
Absolutely.
Now that was me, MJ, sitting there, having gone through this. Imam Hussain, he did the same thing, right? And there is this whole argument about him being a masoom and whether masoom is something relevant, but that's separate. How do you even define this to someone and say that this is a man who knew that he is going to meet his Lord in the best way that we would have wanted to be, a martyr, the king of martyrs?
You see, MJ, this is the secret of Imam Hussain. What you see around you and in this world, when it comes to the love people have for Imam Hussain, this is the secret. The journey of Imam al-Hussain Habibi begins with his spiritual connection with God. And it's not just a spiritual connection, it's a deeper one.
Right.
Anyone who appreciates Arabic language grammatically, when you read just few lines, even this line you've quoted from the Arafah, is enough to conclude that, you know what? Hussain is Hussain.
Sant.
I'm done, I'm going home to sleep. Hussain is Hussain Habibi. Why am I saying this? This line and any other line in Dua Arafah, which I don't think there is any other dua on the Arafah day that can come next to this dua of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. And what I say to people, MJ, from what you've said, just examine this dua Arafah. You can summarize this dua into 3 blocks. The first one is self-knowledge. Here is a man who is going to Karbala, who is going to sacrifice whatever valuable he had. But at the same time, he was pleading to Allah, yearning for Allah, crying for Allah, on top of his voice, tears overflowing from his eyes. This is not an ordinary person. Let me give an example. This, I find it very fascinating line. Where he says, Ana al-faqiru fi ghinai. I am poor in my richness. Why not poor in my poverty? So, yes, I may have something, but I'm poor. So then when I'm poor, I'm poor. And then Imam Hussain alayhi salam will say, I am ignorant in my knowledge. Sayyid al-Shuhada, I wholeheartedly believe he had ilmul ladunni, knowledge by presence. And knowledge by presence is different from early maturity. But he says, I am ignorant in my knowledge. Why can't I be ignorant in my ignorance? So self-knowledge, self-acknowledgement. And the line you quoted is part of those lines, highlighting on self-acknowledgement. Otherwise, Imam Hussain would have said, you know what? It's done. I'm the son of Imam Ali. I'm the son of Sayyidah Fatima. I was brought up by the Holy Prophet. Rahmatan lil Alameen. But look at his intimate and emotional connection with Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Before Karbala. Karbala is on another level. The second block of Dua Arafah, Habibi MJ, Allahu Akbar, is that feeling of loneliness, Gurbat. Imam Hussain says, regardless of your relationship with Allah, there are moments in this world that you should feel lonely. When you commit sin. Because no one will forgive except Allah. And there's a line he said, Ila man takiluni. To whom are you going to refer me? To God. Are you going to refer me to the closest one to me who is not willing to look at me? Or are you going to refer me to someone who doesn't know me, very far away from me? Already he doesn't know me. What is he going to do with me?
Allah
said, I need you. You are the one I need. I don't need anyone. Yes, the person may be close, but he has nothing to offer. I've sinned. Ash'uru bil ghurba. Ashku ilayka gurbati. That's towards the end he said. I complain to you, Allah, my loneliness. I'm Garib. Habibi, this is Ma'soom. This is Hussain we're talking about. This is the Hussain Adam lamented over. This is the Hussain Ibrahim lamented over. This is the Hussain Isa alayhi salam lamented over. This is the Hussain on numerous occasions our beloved Prophet cried for. This is the same Hussain when Sayyidah Fatima salamullah alayha gave birth to him and the Holy Prophet came to the house. Hussain was in a cradle and she gave him to the Holy Prophet. Prophet made the dua. فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَحْوِي إِلَيْهِ. Ya Allah, let the hearts of the people be inclined to this Hussain one day in his life. That's why millions go to Arba'in. Millions go to Karbala. Hussain said, Ashku ilayka gurbati. Ya Allah, I complain to you. Shakwa, shikayat, my gurba, garib. But look at the last block of Dua Arafah. Ash-shu'ur bil khajal. Feeling ashamed. Imam Hussain Habibi alayhi salam, in this dua, you'll come across numerous lines where he was very humbled. He said, I'm ashamed to even ask Allah. I'm ashamed. The lines where he would say, you are the one who give. You are the one who favor. You are the one who bless. But I am the one who wrongs. I am the one who makes the mistake. I am the one who do this. Then towards the end he said, فَبِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ أَسْتَقْبِلُكَ. How do I face you?
Ya Rab.
Through which means should I face you? Should I face you with these eyes? Should I face you with this hearing? How do I face you? Should I face you with my feet? He said, are all not your blessings and I use them to sin against you? So therefore, MJ, really, I'm becoming emotional discussing this. We don't know Imam Hussain. We know a little bit about him. Secret is his attachment to God. And this is way before Karbala. Way before his farewell in Medina. And he cried a lot. That's why when you look at Dua Arafah, that moment you mentioned, raise up your hand. He did the same. And he cried. This is a real ma'rifah of God. And because of that ma'rifah, I and you today will sit under a member. And we'll say, Labbaika ya Hussain.
Wow. You know, Sheikh, there's something, you're completely right about the strength of the Arafah. You're saying you're emotional, I got emotional as well. Imagine a man who comes from the perfect family.
SubhanAllah.
Is telling you, I am asking my Lord for forgiveness. Right? It's just unbelievable. But something about this whole journey of Imam Hussain, Sheikh, has got me wondering. Yes, we lament about the thirst. We lament about the oppression that he faced. We lament about the atrocities that are committed to his family. But there is surely something more important to take from that, right? And you know, I've read Sheikh Shamari's book about the Arafah, and he looks at the other side of Imam Hussain, right? And I also remember Sayyid Abdullah Nakib, you know, a close friend of us as well.
Amazing guy.
You know, he's been with us in spiritual journeys, ziyarah and stuff. And he spoke about Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, you know, and you look at what that profound line means. Yeah. And Sheikh Shamali also says this in his book, that Ma ra'aytu illa jamila wasn't seeing your brother being slain. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila never stood for what happened to Imam al-Hussain or what happened to Al-Abbas or you know, Ali Asghar, Qasim, Ali Akbar. But Ma ra'aytu illa jamila was the mental state of Imam al-Hussain.
Absolutely.
That when all of this was happening, this man did not shake. His faith in God, every time he lost a closed one, just managed to strengthen by a level that we have never seen. One thing that I always look forward to when the scholars talk about the musibah was how Imam al-Hussain would always be the last person that a martyr would see off, and how Imam Hussain would always be the first person that would rush to the battlefield, right? And in your lecture series this time you said there's a Safa Marwa, and then the Safa Marwa for Imam al-Hussain was him going from the Khaymaga to the battlefield and back. And every time he went, he brought someone with him. And every time when he brought someone with him, he was saying goodbye to someone that he will never see again. But yet, Sheikh, his faith was unshaken. You know, he stood there and he told his Lord, you know, do you accept this? Do you accept this? Are you happy with me? All in his mind, Sheikh, at that time was, is my Lord happy with me? And then there is me, right? With the smallest of atrocities in my life, with the smallest of difficulties in my life. And I start shaking and I start questioning whether Allah loves me. Does Allah really, why is my destiny so full of tribulations? But then there is this man. Imagine going to the battlefield, picking up your nephew, who you saw off a few hours ago or a few minutes ago, and then having to collect his pieces and bring it back.
Ya Allah.
Yeah. And then looking at your Lord and saying, are you happy with me? Are you satisfied with me? Is there anything more that I can give you?
You know, MJ, Allahu Akbar. You hit the nail, man. We have a lot to learn from the whole institution of Karbala. Emotional side is there. We must be emotional because atrocities were committed. must cry, we must lament. We lose ourselves sometimes. That's the emotional side of it. And we do have the intellectual side of Karbala. Well, I want to look at everything intellectually. I want to absorb, I want to take some lessons. Personally, the part of Karbala which really strikes me is that mystical part of Karbala. And we touched on some of it. It's a journey Imam Hussain took us on before even the 10th day of Muharram. You look at Medina, before he left Medina, the highlight of what he did in Medina was to pray next to the grave of the Holy Prophet and next to the grave of Sayyidah Fatima, because he knew where she was buried. He was there. I may not know, you may not know. He wouldn't only go and speak to them. He would offer some salat there. God. He would offer salah. Now he left Medina. He got to Mecca. Intention was to perform Hajj, Ibadah. Thereafter, let's see where God takes us. Because he left everything for God. But of course, the tyrant gave ultimatum. If you go there and you want to be free, pay allegiance. Otherwise, blood is going to be shed. But of course, Imam Hussain, God, the point I'm trying to make, God, he had to offer his Umrah, and then he left. So, journey of Imam Hussain. I mean, you hit the nail, MJ. What stands for me and strikes me is that mystical personality of Imam Hussain. Medina. Normally, when it is narrated on Mimbar, on the first night or the second night of the holy month of Muharram, what we pay more attention to is the conversation he had, how he addressed the souls of the Holy Prophet and the souls of the Lady of Light. But if you go further in our readings, you realize that Imam Hussain, after addressing them and complaining to them what happened or what was happening to him, he offered prayers. He stayed there longer. He prayed. Like the way Sayyidah Fatima, Habibi MJ, in her wasiyah, she said to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when you bury me, stay there and recite verses of the Holy Quran. God. And Amir al-Mu'mineen had to stay there to recite few verses. Some narration said he was there for long. He slept. And in his dream, Lady Fatima told him, go back and look after the orphans. He got back home. He entered the room. He found Zainab on the prayer mat of Sayyidah Fatima. Zainab, why are you not sleeping? It's late. He said, my mother used to be here at this time every night. Ya Rab. So she still appreciated the house, the environment. Hussain Salamullah Ali was brought up. So he would pray. Now he moved to Mecca with the few people he had. Plan in Mecca was to do one final Hajj. But the tyrant did not allow him. So he had to switch to Umrah. Then he left. I'm going to mention things, kindly brothers and sisters. Look at this and you will appreciate the secret behind the success of Imam al-Hussain and the secret behind today's scene, even in remote areas, in villages where there are no electricities, where there are no water. People will make it a point to commemorate Imam Hussain. I've seen a situation where people in Africa, they will use a car battery to connect YouTube to listen to the majalis of Imam al-Hussain under trees, MJ. Wallahi
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Because, let's take Eve of Ashura, MJ. Can you imagine the mental health of the camp?
It's crazy, Sheikh.
It's crazy, MJ.
It's crazy.
But narration tells us, بات الحسين وأصحابه عشية عاشوراء ولهم دوي كدوي النخل يتزودون بالعبادة. They spent that entire night Salatul Layl.
Wow.
To such an extent, Imam Hussain will look at Zainab and say to her, remember me in Salatul Layl. Don't forget me in your du'as.
Ya Rab.
MG, mystics mention, if you want to appreciate the secret of existence, if there is one thing you should not forget, it's Salatul Layl.
It's interesting you say this, because I've had this on a personal level, where you have had the longest of days. It's been the most tiring of days, and you'll be like, you know what, Allah's gonna just let me just go. And then this thing really stands with me, Sheikh, is you look at Sayyidah Zainab, you know, on the night which we call Sham Ghariba, on a night where she's lost an entirety of her family, yet she manages to find courage and strength to stand up and pray to her Lord. And I always say this to myself: if Zainab, in the most difficult and bizarre of circumstances, could stand up and pray to her Lord,
SubhanAllah.
And what excuse do I have to say, in the comfort of my house, okay, no, I'm not going to do Layl tonight? But that's Layl, Sheikh. Layl is an additional premium to a Shia thing,
absolutely.
Right? We look at the basics.
Absolutely, MD.
You look at from the morning of Ashura. You look at from the moment Imam Hussain tells his son, go do the adhan, right? And something that stands out for me, Sheikh, at this time is the narrations mention that there was a companion of Imam Hussain who says, Imam, it's approaching the time of prayer. Now, people could look at it in two different ways. One would be that, why does a companion have to remind Imam Hussain? But the other way of looking at it is, the companions of Imam were at such a level that they wanted to be the first to come forward and say, Imam, listen, namaz is coming up. And then there's individuals like myself who, okay, I have a work meeting, I'll do my meeting and then I'll go and pray. Right? And then you have this personality with a group of 72 or 100, whatever the number is, facing a group of 30 to 40,000, you know, in starvation, no water, right? Made to relocate their camps 3 nights before the battle. Spent the entire night in prayer and then saying, we will stop everything and then pray. But before we go to the day of Ashura, Sheikh, I wanna talk about the night of Ashura.
Yes.
It's easy to come to terms with the fact that if I was told today that tomorrow you are going to die, I'm also going to do the same thing. Indulge myself in prayer, ask for forgiveness. You get me? And do what a normal human being would do, which is to cleanse yourself before you go and meet your Lord.
Yeah.
But there is that part where Imam Hussain turns off the candle and asks them to leave, and then they don't leave, and then they stay back.
Yeah.
And then he tells everyone this is where, you know, you will be killed, and this whole story goes. But let's talk about what is one thing that stands out for you on the night of Ashura, that you would today sit back and say, if I was there, if you are told that, okay, Sheikh Nuru, the night of Ashura, you could have been sitting with the companions, what would you do at that time?
CMG, what really stands for me is their trust in God. Those companions, Imam Hussain psychologically and spiritually prepared them. And hence when he switched off the candle and he said to them, this is God, we're talking of spirituality of Karbala. I'm not the target, you are not the target, I am the target. You go and you are free. This is the Imam of their time giving them permission to go. Here comes Habib ibn Mabahir al-Asadi. If I'm chopped off 1,000 times and I'm giving life back 1,000 times and the life is taken away from me 1,000 times and it comes back to me 1,000 times, I will still be proud to give it to the son of Fatima al-Zahra. Here comes the mother of Wahab al-Kalbi, the first woman martyr in Karbala, who became Muslims few days before Karbala, after meeting Imam Hussain alayhi salam on his way to Karbala. because of the kindness of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, they also wanted to pay back in kindness to Imam al-Hussain. What happened, MG? I want brothers and sisters to picture this spirituality. When they killed Wahab and they threw the head of Wahab to the mother, she walked towards the head. She placed a hand on the head. She said, if I'm giving this back 20 times, I'll be proud to give it back to the son of Zahra. It's insane. Hence, Imam Hussain was proud to say, my companions are the best. It's insane, MJ. How can you imagine something like that? Really? So what strikes me and stands for me on that night, they were not asking God for the goodies of this world. No. They were asking Allah to give them the opportunity to die alongside Abu Abdullah. You know what he did, MJ? He did two things. In addition to namaz sharp, he sat next to Zainab. He said to her, Ista'iddi lil bala. My dear sister, prepare for the tragedy. Prepare. Imam Hussain. And then the next line he said to her, Wa'alami anna ahla as-sama yamutun wa ala al-ardi la yabkun. Note that, my dear sister, those in heaven will all perish, and those on earth will also perish. Then he looked at his companions. Ista'iddu lil bala. Prepare for tragedy, O my companions. But note that, and Allah hamikum wa munjikum. Allah will protect you, and your ending will be good. They were asking Allah for the opportunity to die alongside Imam Hussain on that night. And Imam Hussain spent that night asking maghfirah of Allah. MJ. Here is a man, when Adam mentioned his name, his Tama. Adam couldn't mention this. Sunnatan wa Shi'atan reported this, MJ. Here is a man, when Prophet would be on Mimbar and would see him and Imam al-Hassan coming, he'd come down, pick them up, place them here. Said, these are divine leaders, whether they rise or not. But the man on the eve of Ashura, that is why most of our great scholars, when they examine the dimension of Karbala and Ashura, they said the eve of Ashura is the night of Ibadah. It's the night to solidify one's relationship with Allah, because that's exactly what Imam Hussain did. So when he did that, you know what happened? They were calm. They were relaxed. They were looking forward to the 10th day of Muharram. Relaxed. As if there wasn't going to be any battle. You know why? Because they had that intimate conversation with Allah. Now it's about Allah through Imam Hussain. So that's the eve of Ashura for you, MJ.
Sheikh, there's something, you're right, there's something very different about Imam Hussain, right? And there's also narrations that if Imam Ali had the companions that Imam Hussain had, then probably things would have been very different in history. But sometimes we argue, as friends as well, we discuss it. Don't you think Imam Hussain had the unfair advantage in the sense that he came from a family that was pure, that knew nothing but purity and the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Don't you think that makes it easier for him to attain that closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
That's a good question, MJ. That's a very good question. You see, I wouldn't say it is an unfair advantage. Because if you go to Quran, when Allah discusses imams or even prophets, he said, we made them divine leaders when they became patient.
Ahsant.
Patience. The troubles they went through. If we are to face just glimpses of those troubles, I don't think we can manage, MJ. I don't think so.
Go, Sheikh, you look at
it's tough.
You look at the day of Ashura, right? When you finish the maqtal of the day of Ashura, right? The maqtal of Imam Hussain, you're so exhausted,
drained.
You want to go home, but because you're still in that emotional attachment, you manage to drag yourself until Sham al-Ghariba. And after that, you go home, you're like, it's been such a long day, I need to rest. It's drained you emotionally.
True.
And then there was this man who had to watch this with his bare eyes, standing there. Walk in and walk out. My son, my nephew, my best friend. Many times we sit here and when a community loses a youth, right? And you look at the number of people who turn up to the funeral, and sometimes it feels like it's the day of Ashura all of a sudden, because the mosque is packed.
Yeah. And
the father or the mother can only be given solace because the Mawlana or the Shuyukh or whoever goes and recites the majlis that day takes us back to what happened to Imam al-Hussain, and that's your solace, because you're thinking, I did it, I can't do it, Imam al-Hussain did it, and I'm going to take my grief and link it to someone in Karbala. But then you have this man who stood there, right? And you look at the connection that he had with Sayyidah Zainab, where Sayyidah Zainab kept looking at him and he kept looking at her. And then there was this time where now is the time for prayers. And I don't know how far true that is, that there are some enemies who prayed behind Imam al-Hussain.
That version is there.
That they prayed behind Imam Hussain. And then in the evening, they watched this man laying on the ground with shimmer sitting on his chest. And there's, I quote this Allama Iqbal, where he says that the killing of Hussein was done with Allahu Akbar from people's mouth.
No, yeah, absolutely.
What happens? What happens to your spirituality there? You prayed behind one of the finest individuals to have ever lived. Who generated from a family that saw nothing but purity, and then yet you have the audacity to sit there and say, hey, you know what? Let's do Allahu Akbar. Right? But leaving that aside, my moment that stands out on the day of Ashura, that's why I prefer doing the amals at home, is the time when Imam al-Hussain prepares for Salah, right? And then his companions stand in front of him, they're like, Hussein, you pray, we are here. That ability, that much love for your Lord, when He's put you through so much. You imagine waking up in the morning and you have gone in and out, picking up family. And then you're telling everyone, just stop. I want to pray. I want to converse with my Lord before I can get to my Lord. How do you even define that, Sheikh?
You see, MJ, Imam Hussain translated one line of Dua Arafah on the 10th day of Muharram. What has he found who has lost you?
Subhanallah.
And what has he lost who has found you? He found God. Nothing matters. And he managed to channel the energies of all his companions towards that. You mentioned of Sayyidah Zainab, then I come back to Ashura Day. It's fascinating, MJ, man. We're talking of Imam Hussain Ma'asum. Now look at Zainab, salamullah alayha. She lost a chance. She lost her brothers, other family members. Zainab would go to the body of Imam al-Hussain and place these two hands under the body. What would you do, MJ? What would I do, Nuru Mohammed? Zainab would only make dua and plead with Allah to accept this qurban. Allahumma taqabbal minna hadha al-qurban. Imam Hussain groomed her. He took over from Imam al-Hassan. Imam Hussain took over from Imam Ali and Sayyidah Fatima, and from the Holy Prophet Imam Ali took. You can't imagine. And hence I give example of the mother of Wahab. She was how many days Muslim? She was a Christian. But she said, I will give back to Hussein 20 times. Because that night, he managed to get them on board properly. On the 10th day of Muharram, Habibi, you beautifully mentioned it, MJ. And I hope and pray myself and all my dear brothers and sisters who are watching this will take these practical lessons from Imam Hussain. He began the day with Salat al-Fajr. Night, Namaz Shab. Morning, Salat. Why do we cry when the Maulana mentions the Adhan of Ali al-Akbar? Number one, we cry because it's the last time he was making the Adhan. But number two, it has to remind us of the spirituality of Allah's connection. That's what kept them going. Imam Hussain now leading prayers. Look at the spirituality of those companions. They were guarding Imam Hussain. And the enemies were showering them with arrows. They were bleeding profusely. But they said, we were going to be here, protecting you, Sayyidu Shuhada. It's a big thing, MJ. He did not allow anyone to go out without making dua. He raised up his hand. He looked at Karbala. He said, Allahumma, anta thikati fi kulli karb, wa raja'i fi kulli shidda. Oh Allah, you are my trustworthy in every pain, and you are my hope in every grief. This is the dua Imam Hussain made before he allowed. And remember, Maktal told us, 50 died instantly. Only 20 remained. And the 20 kept coming one after the other, MJ. Collecting blood, taking it to Khaymaga, coming back. No second, no minute, Imam Hussain was busy. But what I find even more fascinating, so look at the sequence, brothers and sisters. Namaz Shab, Salat, Fajr, Zohar, Asr, Dua, start the battle. Now up and down, picking up bodies. What was he doing? He was making dhikr. Read the Maktal. He was reciting La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Back and forth. And at one point he was reciting verses of the Holy Quran. He never left God, Habibi.
So you talk about the supplication.
Yeah.
And it's reported that there's quite a lot of supplications
So
that
many.
Imam Hussain did.
Yes.
Obviously, because of the time that we have, we can't look at all of them. But there are three to five that may stand out for you.
Yeah.
And you said that he did a dua every time someone went out. And for me, one that stands out the most was when he was sending Ali Akbar to the battlefield. And he raises his hands and tells Allah that now I'm sending someone who looks like the Prophet.
Yeah.
You know, Sheikh, when you leave home, your mother prays for you to be safe to come back.
Allah.
Yet this man prayed to Allah that he is now sending one of his, trusted and the most precious treasure that he had, a man who would remind him of his grandfather. And then he's praying to Allah that Allah, I'm sending him. And when Ali Akbar goes, what did Imam Hussain, what conversation must he have had with Allah at that time? You look at the point where he had to rush to a point where some of the Arbab of Maqatil say that he couldn't even see straight. That he was told that Ali Akbar is on this side, you're running the opposite side. And then to sit there and to see that your son has a dagger stuck in his chest. And if that wasn't enough, then to look at your Lord and ask for strength to be able to remove that particular dagger, which you know will lead to the end of your son's life. How do you even describe this, Sheikh?
You can't describe it, MJ, because Ali al-Akbar was very close to Imam Hussain. And they had so many intimate conversations. Being the first of Bani Hashim to go wasn't easy for Imam al-Hussain. And Arbab al-Maqatil will mention each of those companions who came to him, he was hesitant. Not even companions like Shah Qasim, for example. May Allah be pleased with all of them. Imam Hussain was hesitant to allow them go in. The only one he did not hesitate for a second was Ali. Let me add this, MJ. For each and every matter, upon hearing the voice of that matter, Imam will rush to the body. He never rushed to the body of Ali. He walked.
Wow.
Slowly but surely. And he took a wrong direction. Sukaina called out, "Daddy, where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the body of Ali." He said, "But I think Ali is here."
Wow.
And he said, "It kills me to know that Ali is going." And you mentioned a very, that's a line for me you mentioned, MJ. They dug on Ali's chests. What was in the mind of Hussein? Some scholars said he was just saying, "Thank you, God. I thank you. I made it. I thank you. But I plead with you, God, accept it on my behalf." It's not Ad's son, this is my son. And hence the poet mentioned, what would Imam Hussain say? Said Imam Hussain would face the Najaf and send salam to his beloved father. Say, "Father, you lifted the door of Khaybar with your hand. Come and see your son lifting dagger from the chest of his son." He was a proud father at that moment. He was proud of his relationship with God at that moment. With Ali, and then we'll come to the baby, Imam delivered. Wallah, Imam delivered, MJ.
Sheikh, tell me one supplication.
Yeah.
There's also reports that Imam Hussain recited a few verses of Joshan al-Kabir.
Yes.
And there's a few verses that he recited, the one that you said, that you are my solace in my grief.
Yeah, and hope, yeah.
And my hope. What is one supplication that really, really, really stood out for you on the day of Ashura?
MJ. There are so many, but the one that really stood out for me is the one you just quoted. You are the only one, man. You are my solace. You kept me going. And the other one, which I know we'll get to that and conclude with that, is Ilahi ridham bi qada'ik wa tasliman li amrik. You see, the last body he dealt with was the body of Asghar. And the first body of Banu Hashim he dealt with Akbar. So can you imagine the pain, MJ? I just want brothers and sisters to think about this, really. If it wasn't of God, I don't think Imam Hussain would have done it. He literally made effort to build that relationship with God. And who taught him? Fatima and Ali. Because in the ziyarah of Fatima, we said, "Oh, Mumtahana," or the tested, or the examined, who was found patient when she was examined. How patient? Because she linked up with God. So the same way Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. So that ilahi ridam bi qada'ik wa tasliman li amrik explains the mystical stages, 3 stages, MJ. Because Ali Asghar was struck Can you imagine father holding a baby 6 months old? Arrows on the neck of that baby. Lips of the baby too dry. He could not see movement at all before even the baby was struck.
Wow.
No noise coming from the baby. And parents will appreciate this. Even if for a minute they don't see or they don't hear any noise from the baby, they couldn't handle. Imam held Askar, salamullah alayhi. Harmala, or Hurumala as some may call, struck that arrow to the neck of the baby. So see Imam Hussein's connection with God. He only wanted the pleasure of Allah. At one point, he was thinking of the mother of the child. How do I face this mom and say to her, there are arrows around the neck of your baby? Hence, he would go back and forth.
Wow.
But this is also God, this connection with God. Inna lillah
Wa inna ilayhi.
wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Descending arrow and ascending arrow. We descended from God and we are ascending to Him. It's a mystical stage. Difficult to tell Rabab, arrow here. But then Imam said, Ilahi ridam bi qada'ik wa tasliman li amarik. So if you look at this, MJ, rida, taslim. Before rida and taslim, there is one, tawakkul, which Imam Hussain mentioned in Makkah when he was doing Safa and Marwa. So he will remain and rely on Allah, and whatever happens will happen. Tawakkul, what is tawakkul, MJ? Okay, I do my part. I said, Allah will do the rest. But Imam Hussain took it to Rida. Rida simply means what? I'm pleased with this, Allah. I'm happy. I'm happy. Ali is gone. Allah, you're happy? I'm happy.
Wow.
That's a Rida. Akbar is gone. You are happy, Allah? So no issue, I'm happy. No, not Rida. Taslim. You know what is Taslim, MJ? But this even is yours, Allah. You've taken back. What's the problem? What's the problem? It's yours. I did not have it before. You gave it to me. So I surrender to you. That's Taslim. And that's exactly what Sayyid Shuhada did, MJ, before he sought out the body of the baby.
In the Arafah as well, Imam mentions, oh Allah, do not hasten that which you have delayed for me. And don't delay that which you have hastened for me.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah. You look at that ayah, and you think that the day of Arafah was, what, a month away from the day of Ashura.
Of course.
That Imam al-Hussein said these profound words, that Allah, do not delay that. You know, do not let me delay what you have hastened for me. And that has so many different ways.
Oh, definitely.
But I want to discuss the final moments of Imam al-Hussein with you. You've just said there is rida, then there is taslim and tawakkul and all of these things. It's insane. It actually doesn't add up how crazy and how indulged Imam Hussain was in the love of Allah, that whatever calamity befell on him, he still managed to look back and say, no, Allah, this is not a calamity. This is you. This is what you wanted. This is what you decreed on me, my Lord. I'm here. I'm giving it to you. We start. He goes, Ali al-Akbar. He's like, Allah, this is yours. You've taken from me. He goes to Abbas, his greatest strength and support. A man who was brought to this world for him, for this day. Right? Yet he goes there and for me, Sheikh, the martyrdom of Abu al-Fadl has its own grief and deep grief about it. But what stands out to me was that it got to a point where Imam was so deprived that he couldn't even bring Al-Abbas back. You know, there is that. And then you have Qasim, you have Habib, you have Hur, and then in the end it's Anil Asghar. You know, we talk about the sacrifice of Ibrahim, but even Ibrahim, who was told that you go and sacrifice your son, was told, listen, tie a cloth around your eye so you don't see what.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yet Hussein stood there and saw 72, Sheikh. One by one, right? And still manages to say, Allah, are you happy? Are you happy, my Lord? You're not happy? Okay, more. Are you satisfied, my Lord? Here, my Lord, here. I have more, I have more. And when he gave everything away, a 6-month-old responded to that call and he said, okay, my Lord, here, this as well. And then he prepares himself to go to the battlefield where he knows now it's his time to meet his Lord. Right? A man who hadn't eaten. You know, I always have this discussion with my friends, and I say, the martyrs before Imam Hussain can consider themselves lucky that they didn't have to see what Imam Hussain had to see.
Absolutely, MJ.
You know?
Absolutely.
It's easy to go into the battlefield and be the first,
True.
or the 5th, the 10th,
True.
the 20th.
True.
But it's very difficult to be the last.
True.
We talk about mental health and psychology, and then you have this raw, merciless slaughtering. It's not animals you're talking about, Sheikh. You're talking about human beings who had an attachment to the holy household, right? A father seeing his son. We talk about, well, may Allah never let a father have to bury his son. So what about that prayer of a father having so deprived that he can't even bury his son? You know? And then Imam Hussain prepares himself. And that's the crux of today's conversation, where I want to know, what was the conversation between Imam al-Hussain and his Lord from the time he started preparing himself to that final moment. We will discuss what happened in that final 2-3 minutes, because that's the most critical part. But I want to know the supplication, the conversation that Imam al-Hussain had with Allah when he prepared himself to embark on his final
you see, Allah is everything to Imam al-Hussain, as you put it, MJ. And right from the beginning up to the time he was martyred, he was butchered, it was all about God. You mentioned one of the lines, but there are others. Imam Hussain would ask God, are you pleased with me? Aradita bi? Are you radin of me? Are you happy? Have I delivered? He would still plead with Allah to accept, the way Zainab did after him. You see, this is very difficult part of the whole event. But lessons for all of us to learn, not to give in, not to give up, hold on to God. He bidded those final farewells. He said the farewells. The young daughter found it very difficult that the father was going. Out of all the conversations he had with God, MJ, the one I found really, really striking, it's crazy, MJ, is when Imam Hussain said, تركت الخلق طرا في الحواق وأيتمت العيال لكي أراك لو قطعني بالحب أربع ترعى باش في الحب لما مال الفؤاد إلى سواك. MJ, for me, that really concludes. He said, I've left the entire creation. Everything I left. تركت الخلق. خلق means entire creation. Everything of this world. طرا في هواك. In you and for you. I left everything. I loved Medina so much. I left Medina. But look at the second line. وَأَيْتَمْتُ الْعَيَالَ لِكَيْ أَرَاكَ. So here Imam said, Aytamt is past tense. But even Quran we have it. Is a waqa'at al-waqi'ah. When something it's going to happen regardless. So you use past tense to describe it. So if you translate it, you said what? I've orphaned my children.
For you.
For you. So I see you.
Wow.
So I see you. In other words, I'm going to make them orphan. Remember Fatima to Sogora? I'm going to make her orphan. So I see you. But look at the last line. لو قطعني بالحب أو في الحب عربة. If I'm chopped erban into pieces because of your love, لما مال الفؤاد إلى سواك. This heart will not divert to anyone except you. Some said he said it when he was on the ground. Some said he said it when he was going. But this is one of the most final words of Sayyid al-Shuhada salamullah alayhi. But I've left them. I'm gone now.
This is tough.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
And what we're going to discuss is even harder. And it's no surprise that a lot of reciters tend to struggle to recite.
Yeah, it's difficult.
But let's talk about the moment where Shimmer sat on the chest of Imam Hussain. Right? Let's analyze that moment, right? Where you are now seated on the body of a man who grew up in the hands of the Prophet, who was fed by Sayyidah Zahra, right? Who was brothered by Imam al-Hassan, whose sister was Sayyidah Zainab, right? After all that's gone on Imam al-Hussain, right? From his family, from what the enemies did to him, from the time where he almost, from the time where the enemies almost attacked the tents and he found the courage to stand up and fight again, and then to come down in that final moment, right? And then Shimmer sits on his chest with wanting to commit the most ruthless and the most heinous act that's ever happened in the history of this religion. Right? And then you have this man on the ground. And you look at the Quran where it says, Allah says, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Where now Imam al-Hussain in his final moments, and now his Lord tells him, it's time, come. This is the crux moment. This is the time where Imam Hussain is now saying, okay, I'm going to meet my Lord. This is what I lasted all this time for, right? Yet, Sheikh, what is so profound of this moment is that he still is not bothered about Shimmer on his chest. He's still worried, and he's telling Shimmer, I am worried about what's going to happen to you. Right? What sort of compassion, what sort of mercy do you have to have? Right? And then, even when this heinous act has been committed, where some of the narrations mention that even the Imams turned away, that even Imam Ali turned away, even Rasulullah turned away. The authenticity of it is obviously questionable. But if you look at it for poetic's state, right? And they say that Sayyidah Zahra looked over this act, right? There's a very profound recitation in the Urdu poetry where Allah orders the angel of death to go to Imam al-Hussain during his final moments, and he tells the angel, remove the soul of Imam al-Hussain, and Malikul Maut has this conversation with Allah and says, where do I remove it from? So he says, remove it from his back, and he says, no, the back is broken because since Allah Abbas passed away. And remove it from this side is like the whole body has arrows filled over it. Then he says, okay, remove it from the chest, and he says, on the chest is Shimmer sitting on it. So I can't remove. And then he says, okay, remove it from the neck, and he says, I can't, because there is a mother holding the sword back and saying, don't commit this act, I will pray for you. This is a mother who's seeing her son about to be slaughtered, yet finds compassion to say, I'm going to pray for you. Don't do this, right? Then Allah says, okay, just leave, I will do this. And then there's a profound lecture by Sheikh where he analyzes this and says this was Allah telling the angel that Imam Hussain was at such a level that even you, the angel of death, cannot come close. Because on those final moments, it was him and me looking at each other and me saying, come to me. But what is it about that final moment, Sheikh, that really, really stood out for you?
For me, MJ, that's the entire summary of the movement and the mission of Imam Hussain. Because there's a narration, actually. When the enemies got closer to Imam Hussain, Shimr, to sit, and even those who came before Shimr, they would witness his face shining, and he was smiling. That's why Shimr was the last person to come. There was even a Christian who came, and then Imam Hussain would say to him, I'm the son of Fatima, the son of the Prophet Mohammed, the brother of Isa alayhi salam. Another one came, and Imam Hussain would recite verses of the Holy Quran. When Shimr came, obviously he first pulled the beard of Imam Hussain, took out his dagger, sat on the chests. Imam Hussain was smiling. For me, what stood out for me is Allah is pleased with Imam Hussain. And the enemies could vouch for that also. Because he was smiling. He was not pushing them. He was not complaining. He was pleased. And this is the end goal of spirituality. When Quran says, the most important thing is the ending. But if you look at the journey of Imam Hussain, it's from Allah to Allah with Allah. And Samir Mu'minin said, I've not seen anything except I see Allah before it, Allah with it, Allah after it. And that's exactly what Karbala stands for. Wallahi, MJ.
It's been an honor, Sheikh, to discuss this with you. Honestly, we always talk about the events of Karbala, but we haven't had this conversation where you look at what Imam al-Hussein had to say to his Lord. But to sum it up, there is something insane about the love that everyone has for Imam al-Hussein, right? Because you look at it where there's a very profound narration that says, it is in the hearts of the mu'minun, right? That a fire that will never die.
It's true.
A fire that always remain, right? And what I look at it now, Sheikh, is you have traveled the world and you've done Muharram in so many places, right? These 12 days or these 60 days, if you include Arba'in every day, you look at the insane amount of love. You know, where you've got people who are disabled, but hey, I'm going to do this for Hussein. Yeah. You have people who would not do anything throughout the day, but if you ask them through the love of Hussein, they'll give it to you. And you look at Arba'in, look at the way people are selfless. You look at it here, wherever you go in the world, it's just Hussein, 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 Hussein. And I'll end my side by saying something to you. You look at the University of Imam al-Hussein, right? I call it a university, like you said, right? It's just not knowledge, it's everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
A man who was mercilessly killed with his family taken through so much trouble and gone through atrocities like none other. Yet today, 1400 years later, it is through the majalis of Imam al-Hussein where scholars are seen, youth come together, families come together.
Educated
people come together. Families forge relationships then. People end up getting married after that, right? People earn their livelihood from a majalis of Imam Hussain. I had this conversation with my wife and I told her, I said, look at one majlis of Imam al-Hussain, just one. The watchman gets his income. The chef earns his revenue.
Subhanallah.
The guy selling the materials for the niyaz earns his revenue. The sound guy. The government earns it through the electricity. The design. Everyone who is one way or the other connected to the Masjid of Imam Hussain is not only earning in this world, but also in the hereafter. You're earning a livelihood from that. Right? How rich and how big is this university, Sheikh?
You can't describe it. You can't describe the extent of how big this university is. We see it every year is increasing. And hence, I hold this belief that learn about Hussein and will understand the love that people have for him.
Ahsant. I think that the greatest honor we have is to have the opportunity to even utter the words Hussein.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
And the departing words from the two of us, if I may take this honor,
Subhanallah,
on behalf of Sheikh Nuru, is to say that the famous words of the poet who said, there will come a time where every corner of this world will say Hussein, Hussein. But more so, there will come a time where everyone will claim that Hussein was from him and that Hussein belongs to them. But if you are watching this, and if there's one thing we ask you to take away from this, is may Allah not only get us closer to Hussein, but may Allah take us closer to him through Hussein. And may Allah ease our difficulties through Hussein. But most importantly, brothers and sisters, and whoever's watching this in any part of this world, if there's anywhere where you can do anything to spread the message of Imam Hussain, then go for it. But the next time you are having an argument or a discussion whether you have to pray on time or not, remember Hussein on the day of Ashura and what he did. When his life was in danger, he put everything aside and conversed with his Lord. And I pray that Allah grants us the opportunity to visit Imam al-Hussein, but also to emulate his spirituality throughout our life. And may we meet our Lord the way Hussein met his Lord, with his Lord being pleased with him. Sheikh, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
It's sad that we have to end this, but Hussein is a personality that can be spoken and spoken and spoken, and yet not enough can be achieved.
No, thank you so much, MJ. Wish you all the best of luck. And I echo what you said, the du'as, that Allah never deprived us of this love of Imam al-Hussein and grant us opportunities to visit him more and more, inshallah.
And to serve Allah in the name of Imam Hussain. A special thanks goes to the Zoe Spaces team who accommodated us at a very last minute, and to ARC Agency who managed to get this production done on a weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.